The rest of the world is unfamiliar with him outside of being a celebrity apprentice guy or on The Apprentice, and they like that. And he's been inculcated or indoctrinated into a lot of psyche through rap music and things. And I was like, he could win, so we need to register in places as Republicans to make sure he doesn't make it out of the primary, because if he makes it out of the primary, he can beat Hillary Clinton. People thought I was crazy. And as a matter of fact, I got a lot of angry calls and people yelling at me. But I said, this is no longer about partisan politics. This is about identity. So what does it mean to be a Democrat today?
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is a time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We will survive.
Welcome to the family.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be a part of the Sirius XM family. Just a true honor, and the ability to reach tens of millions of people is really exciting.
It is important. We need more voices of reason on
Yeah.
this. On this. So I was like, yes, to Governor Beshear.
That's what I always talk about, is trying to be a voice of reason in our current chaos that can hopefully give people something to coalesce around, but also feel a little bit more in control of what seems to be a chaotic world.
Yes, we're going to jump into that. Before I do, let me handle some business. Y'all who are listening, you can hear him on Progress, channel 127, every Saturday at 11 a.m. So that's where he's going to be living. He also is going to be doing the Andy Beshear podcast, which you can get wherever you get your podcast. And he also will be doing, and is doing, because it's happening in real time, Andy Beshear Presents. Andy Beshear Presents, which are special live events. You just
That's right.
finished up one.
We're doing one tomorrow
with
John. I think it's 11 a.m. call-in show. So we just filmed the podcast, which will be up on Wednesday, but I'm taking live calls tomorrow.
What? Okay. This is why I know you're a real one. So I want to just jump in. They say you're a Democrat, and I've been having this fight since 2015. That when I started something called the Party of Lincoln, when I realized really early, because I'm from New Jersey, but I spent my career in New York at the New York Daily News for 16 years, that Donald Trump could win, because the rest of the world is unfamiliar with him outside of being a celebrity apprentice guy or on The Apprentice, and they like that. And he's been inculcated or indoctrinated into a lot of psyche through rap music and things. And I was like, he could win, so we need to register in places as Republicans to make sure he doesn't make it out of the primary, because if he makes it out of the primary, he can beat Hillary Clinton. People thought I was crazy. And as a matter of fact, I got a lot of angry calls and people yelling at me. But I said, this is no longer about partisan politics. This is about identity. So what does it mean to be a Democrat today?
Well, I'm proud to be a Democrat. To me, I think it's about trying to lift everyone up and leave no one out. But when you look at my career, I think what you see is I'm a pragmatist. My job is to move our Kentucky families or our American families forward as fast and as far as I can. The things I'm most proud of have helped Republicans and independents as much as Democrats, because you run with the party, but you're supposed to govern for all your people. It's the thing that frustrates me most about Congress right now, is you see the big ugly bill that went through. The person that pushed it through the House of Representatives is a Kentucky U.S. rep who has more rural hospitals in his district that are going to be hit. It eliminates the EV tax credits, and he has 3 of the biggest EV plants in the world. So somewhere along the line, for some, this stopped being about serving the people and ended up being more about serving your party, and that's just never been made.
Is it serving the party, Governor, or is it something else?
That's fair. It may be serving the president.
You interviewed Amy Klobuchar, Governor
Yes.
Klobuchar, and she talked about, her granddad in the mines and her dad, working as a newspaper guy, mom's a teacher. And that's a very American background, yours as well, mine as well. We're very American. Something has happened. And she talked about her, the farmers voting, thinking that they were going to have, a better economy. And I'm like, but you elected a 6-time bankrupter. Like, where was it? Like, this person, either they're very bad at business or their business is not paying people what they've contracted. So there's a character flaw here. What gave them the impression that the economy would get better, especially when you just laid out jobs were better under Biden Harris? The economy was booming. Wall Street was happy, which I'm surprised at Wall Street. I'm like, what are y'all doing? Unemployment was lower. Build Back Better was going to bring rural areas broadband and jobs and infrastructure, water pipes being replaced, all of that. New Deal, not New Deal, but it felt like a New Deal. The tech, with the wind and the solar in places like Vermont, booming businesses, taking people out of the coal mines, putting them in the next thing. What was that decision about?
Well, I think Donald Trump is president because he convinced the last group of undecided voters that he was more focused on helping them pay that next bill. And then he convinced them that the vice president was distracted by 100 of other issues. What you saw when that campaign was closing was the Democratic Party trying to send 50 different messages to 50 different subgroups, and Donald Trump talking about 1, 2, or 3 that impact everyone. And so if the Democratic Party has lost sight of something, it's that the core concerns of Americans aren't partisan. They're your job and whether you can support your family. They're your next doctor's appointment for yourself, your parents, or your kids. They're the roads and bridges you drive, the school you drop your kids off at, and whether you feel safe in your community. And so we saw, say, a lot of pro-choice voters voting for Donald Trump because they couldn't afford their kid's next prescription. And if you can't afford that, you'll vote for just about anybody if you believe that they are more focused on it. So what I think it means is the amount of time we spend talking about something is critically important because that's how people see what our priorities are. But then when we have an opportunity to govern, how much time do we spend on it there? And that's where I think you see Donald Trump's approval ratings sliding very fast because while he promised to be a president that would focus on affordability, he's done anything but. Your life is much harder right now because he's president.
Well, you and I share a faith. My Bible says you know a tree by the fruit that it bears. What I'm saying is this man's fruit has always been poison. It's always been not paying. It's always been charlatan behavior. It's always been lack of character. It's always been those things. So it's hard for me to reconcile. And we have to get this because we have a midterm election coming up.
We do.
I don't know if we're going to have another presidential election the way things are going, if I'm being honest. But right now, we all live somewhere. That's been my rallying cry. We all live somewhere. All politics is mostly local. We're going to have to figure out civically how to engage with our politicians. They're not our friends. We're not voting for people that we like, even though, you're a very likable person.
Well, thank you.
But we're not voting for that. We're voting for resources and rights. And can this person deliver? And if they never delivered it, why do we think that they can? And that has to be the drum beat that all politicians kind of.
Yeah, that lane to victory is being a voice of common sense, finding some common ground, but then getting results. And people who right now struggle to pay the grocery bill also mean they can't pay for that vacation that the American dream says they should. That young couple can't afford a house at the same time that their parents could, and I can't imagine how that must make you feel on an emotional level, almost like you're failing. And so we've got to make sure that we are not only talking about, but providing real opportunity. I've been proud in Kentucky that we secured a record amount of private sector investment. We've created a record number of jobs, but at the highest wages that we've ever announced. We've broken our exports record, our tourism record. And what you see right now is people there are optimistic. And so a Democratic governor in a state that went Trump plus 30 has a 68% approval rating. And I only throw out that number to say, if people believe that you are working really hard for them and they're seeing results, they'll vote for you. I've got one example. There is a county in a town called Henderson in Kentucky. And Henderson used to be a Democratic county, but it was a traditional coal mining county and had becoming more and more red. I think in 2019, in my first governor's race, I won it by maybe 3 points. And I thought maybe that would be the last time a Democrat won it. But pretty close to re-election in 2023, we landed the country's cleanest, greenest recycled paper mill there. 350 jobs, paying $40 an hour.
Come on.
And I remember when the owner of that company is an Australian, actually came through the Zoom to this town and said, we're creating 350 green jobs. And I watched very closely as everybody got up and applauded because the green was the $40
The money.
an hour.
Right,
and
right.
so in this county that had been trending the other way, I won by double digits. Why? Because we were creating a better life and people could see a better life, that people aren't as political as we think that they are, but we've got to give them reason to believe. We've got to show up. We got to get dirt on our boots. We got to prove the good work that we're doing. You know, when they see a factory and you're not there to talk about what brought it there, then they don't see, you know, who has helped to make it happen. So we've got to get out there and make our case to the American people.
We're talking with Governor Andy Beshear, who's laid out the things that he's done, and I can't dispute it. But as I'm listening to you, and you're having some very compelling conversations with governors, New Mexico, you just had a beautiful woman and amazing, conversation.
great energy.
Yeah,
We call
Governor
her
Westmore.
MLG.
Yeah, Governor MLG, Governor Westmore, Governor
great friend of
Amy
mine.
Klobuchar. There've been some real conversations around policy, but I keep going back to this because I think that America, and I sit in a very unique seat because I'm able to see things that maybe you can't see. Kentucky is still very white,
It is.
and again, when people vote for Andy Beshear, they're voting for a person they know. So it doesn't matter whether you have a DRR next to your name. Trump was a registered Democrat, had all his family forever. What does it even, I'm saying, if we can throw away these labels, they're voting for you because you are somebody they trust, they know, they see you, they know your daddy, they know where you come from, they know what you believe in, they know your dog, they know everything about you.
And they know I'm being real.
And they know you're straight up because you have receipts. You have done the thing, And so it makes it real easy to cast a vote. They're not going in a booth thinking about, I'm not voting for a Democrat, because most of us are not led by that. We're led by identity more than anything. And I think we need to really start to have that conversation, because when I started this show 10 years ago, my radio show going on 11, Washington Post did this amazing survey study. I know you've probably seen it. They said 3/4 of white people who identify as white, which is a made up construct, they don't have any relationship with anybody black outside of, maid, those kind of relationships which are transactional. I know that's not the case with you, but in a world where people self-segregate, you have states like yours, like, Vermont and New Hampshire and North and South Dakota and Montana, where I had a caller on my show last week who's new to the show, just found it, and was happy to be part of because we create a family environment. Everybody's welcome. He said, I don't know what to do because I live in a place where I don't even have any black people in my town. I don't even know what's going. So how do we, if your only relationship is in a transactional way where people need something from you or they're giving you something, but they're wearing a mask, and your only vision of them is through movies, TV, rap music, which is 70% again purchased by people outside of the black community. How do we even get past this identity thing when somebody's telling you, I'm the boogeyman, I'm the problem, I'm the criminal, I'm the drag on society, when most of us are not in jail, most of us are not, I grew up in a neighborhood, everybody had a daddy, everybody had a daddy, and it was all black because white people moved out when we moved in. How do we even start to have these conversations?
Well, for me, I have to start with understanding that I'll never feel the weight of racism, of discrimination, of the vestiges of Jim Crow and segregation, but I know they're real. And I know that they happen even today. And I know that I need to listen to people who experience them. And that many of the solutions will come from those that have felt that pain. To me, in Kentucky, it's about having real relationships with people that have different backgrounds than I do. My chief of staff is a strong black woman.
I know.
I
looked at I said, okay, Governor Beshear, come on.
My deputy attorney general, my first secretary of the cabinet, was our first black district judge and broke so many ceilings, but he never wanted to talk about it because he didn't think he should have had to have been
Correct.
The first. But to have people that can guide you, but that you also listen to, has helped us do a number of things, some symbolic, like we removed the statue of Jefferson Davis from our state capitol because no child should go in and see that statue and feel less than. Our legislature wouldn't do it, so I declared Juneteenth an executive branch holiday and signed an executive order based on the Crown Act because people shouldn't be discriminated against because of their hair. I never have been. But then you look at, we opened the first hospital in our largest African American community in 150 years. It's because somebody came to me with the idea, and I had listened and knew how important it was. And then we went about removing the obstacles. And it is one of the best, most advanced hospitals in the entire state. We found a way to incentivize businesses to move into those same communities and have announced about 1,000 jobs there. So I think it's about recognizing that even though I can't feel the depth of what people feel when they've been discriminated against, if we act intentionally and we work together, we can make some good things happen. And I'd close by saying I vetoed every anti-diversity bill that's come to my desk, and I still won re-election.
That's right.
But I'm still popular in my state because people respect conviction. And again, they're a lot more focused on their job than a lot of other things.
Governor Andy Beshear, this wasn't about, you have already shown improved. Okay, we know who you are. We know who you are. We know who you are because we know your fruit. Okay, what I'm saying is America. Yeah. I did a book with Keith Ellison, the first Muslim elected to Congress in a state
Attorney General.
A great attorney general now. State, it was, I think it was 1% Muslim, and 6% black at the time that he was elected and reelected and reelected. And his thing was, when you talk to people, once you, this is my point is, if people self-segregate,
yes,
and their only engagement is through media that is already skewed.
Right.
And I worked in a newsroom. The Daily News was 4%. Today is 4%.
If they only talk to someone that looks like them.
Not just talk to, because this is not just about a conversation. It's about a relationship. You've had relationships. Keith Ellison's cousin is a dentist. He was a dentist in Owsley, Kentucky.
Oh, in Owsley County.
Yes.
Wow.
And this is when I first learned about Owsley, Kentucky, which
Yes.
I think was 95% or 99% white, the poorest county at the time in the entire country. And he said, my cousin was a dentist. And you know what? He could run for mayor or run for county and win because he changed and transformed so many lives through his dentistry, and they know him. And so it's like we are a nation of people that don't know each other, and we have these very strong views of people, and we think very strongly about things we don't know. How do we break that? That's the thing that's killing us.
So that's interesting because I just appointed the first Puerto Rican native as a county judge in eastern Kentucky, which is close to Owsley County. And the reason it's possible is he knows everybody and they know him. And once they have that real relationship, everything changes.
Yeah. How do we get the real? If you are in your silo and all you hear is this, and you only listen to this channel and you only watch this news, and you go to the church, your church is all the same people, and it's this drumbeat of misinformation, disinformation, and just wrong, especially folk who say they love the Lord. Like, it's just wrong to be this definitive and judgmental of folk you don't know.
My pastor said, when your religion has been hijacked, when your God hates all the same people that you do.
How do we get here? So I'm saying, my job every day is having these conversations, these tough conversations. But I'm very hopeful that if we can break some of these barriers.
That's right.
How do we what's the solution to that? How do we get people to move? Like, I remember having this conversation with Reed Galen, and he's blah, 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 blah. And I said, but you live in Utah. So your children are not being exposed. You have this vision of this world that you want, but you've self-segregated, and your children have nothing but the sameness. So how do they even get, and we're doubling down on it now. We're banning books, and we're removing this and that. And I'm not very hopeful that we'll get there, even though I'm a hopeful, optimistic person.
I think it means that we've got to act with the same intentionality that those trying to push us apart are. And I think we've got to recognize that right now, division is being pushed at the highest of levels. That it's real hard to bring people together and to get them to know each other when we have a president that's saying just because you're a member of a different political party, that you're not the same type of American citizen. And also now these pushes about what America is or isn't, which is incredibly concerning. I think back to one of Reagan's final speeches when he talks about one of the beauty of America is the fact that you can move here from another country, legally of course, and become an American. That was Ronald Reagan, who was the standard bearer for the Republican Party for so long, and now you hear the exact opposite, and almost pretending that speech or that it
Didn't
didn't
exist.
happen
Right.
or that
Right.
value didn't exist.
Right. I said Jack Kemp couldn't be in the Republican Party today. Jack Kemp, Eisenhower. Like it's wild that we live in this time, and I wonder if it's always been this way, and maybe the veil has been lifted, and now we are confronted with the reality that we're going to have to make this a more perfect union. All of us are required to do something. It's not just going to happen.
Absolutely, that this takes not just folks in your chair or mine, either on Sirius XM or in the governor's seat, but it's going to take every family, every American. But you know what? We've proven we can do that. Think about especially at the beginning of the pandemic, where we asked people to be the best version of themselves. And I believe people at their core are good. Why? Because after a tornado, more people are helping
That's
than
right.
hurting.
That's right.
After a flood, I watched a woman muck out her neighbor's house before she got to hers, and she had a 9-year-old daughter. I saw God in her, and I see her all the time. And it is this amazing reminder of the goodness in people. In many ways, I think that we live through cycles, and I wonder if this is our McCarthyism.
Yes.
Trying to make our fellow American the enemy, and that's got to break. Well, when it breaks, we've got to make sure we do the hard work of healing. And that's
Yes.
bringing people together, not just to different parties, but as you're saying, different backgrounds and experiences. As Wes Moore says, if we're all children of God, then we are each other's brothers and sisters,
That's
and
right.
we got to act like it.
Yeah, whew, Governor Beshear. So first, I wanna thank you for being you, because it, in many ways, restores hope that it's possible. I've been conditioning my audience to not treat politicians as friends. We're not electing buddies. We're electing people who can produce
Yes.
the things that we need, right? But we first have to have a list. It's almost like we are asking you, fix my problems, but we have not assessed what the problems are to begin with. So I'm like, get out in your neighborhood, figure out what's needed in your neighborhood. If it's not there, maybe you should run. If the problem is not being fixed by the people that you put in, vote them out. Primary everybody. Nobody should feel comfortable sitting in a seat of service, right?
All you're describing is a job.
Yes.
Where everyone else has to get results
Correct.
in their job. And there's, sometimes we can understand if we see somebody that's pushing and pushing and pushing, and we can see the forces that push back against them. At that point, we need to get them more help.
Yes.
So
More pushing, more people to
we
push.
need-
Yeah.
In my opinion, we need to get Hakeem Jeffries some more help. And I get that. I get that.
Governor Beshear, I know you just talked to him.
I did.
I'm not the one to bring up just you.
But Congress has to start doing its job.
Yes, that's what. No more rhyming.
And at the
Sir.
I hear that in the very least, we've got to have a separate branch of government that'll stand up
I
to
agree.
the overreach of this.
I agree, but
president.
there's a lot of chit chatter while they aren't even passing basic things like why are you all still insider trading? I can't insider trade. But you can.
So as
Susan
governor, I
Collins.
can't, but
You cannot.
I cannot.
You cannot. I cannot. Why can they?
Yeah.
Citizens United, that happened. That was, Supreme Court. It was horrible. But y'all can do something about it in Congress. You can actually get all of the dark money, light money, white money, whatever. Get the money out so that we, the people, can be restored, right? They are not passing anything. They're talking about it because they come in poor. Keith Ellison talked about the frustration of fundraising. He hated it, which is why he went into another. He said every year you're out there begging people for money, and so he's getting the small donors. He said, I'm one of the few non-millionaires in Congress because it's distasteful for me to get out and beg for money.
I understand what that's like as a governor.
Yeah, right. So, but as a voter, I
Yes.
feel like I'm up against these billionaires and people with a lot of money, and my little vote doesn't matter. And I get why people are not voting.
And I hear you, but when you think about the fact that you're worried there will be a next election,
I am. Yeah.
getting Congress to act like Congress is the first and best way we can ensure we have that next
What does
election.
that look like?
I'll start in its most basic. They live up to their constitutional duty as a separate branch of government. Think about all these appropriations they're trying to cancel. And for your listeners, an appropriations passed as a law. It looks like the same as every other law that you and I have to follow. So it creates a program. It creates the Department of Education. Like it or don't, is created by statute. Then it funds it. It says this amount of money shall be used there. Then as a state, we sign a contract with the federal government. Oftentimes, we go ahead and expend the money in advance. And so what they're trying to pull back is money that we are
Already,
owed.
yes.
And so, in the very least, saying we are Congress, we pass the laws, and a president can't ignore them or rewrite them. And I think that will stop a lot of the overreach, and it can stop a lot of the attempts to change how elections happen. Certainly, an executive order can't override an act of Congress. And so, Congress acting like itself again is, I think, one of the first steps to just ensuring that our democracy continues to function.
But again, if you are beholden to donors that told you to here's the bill, or here's the thing you're not going to pass, and you took money, you already took money. This is what I'm saying. Like there should be some.
We need people who, yes, go out and raise money, but then do the right thing.
Correct.
And part of what we're seeing right now on the Republican side in Congress is being so afraid you're going to lose your job that you lose all your self-respect, that you stop doing your oath of office, you ignore your duty. And to me, it's never been worth it. If I'm going to lose my self-respect, I'm not going to do this job.
Right.
I'll go do another job. But how it got there from successful people that are there, it's almost baffling that these folks, many more successful than the president was in the private sector with the bankruptcies and the rest, will allow themselves just to be run over. For me, if we can win a couple governor's races this year, hopefully that will prove that being with this president politically is not advantageous, because we need both parties to do their job in Congress.
Correct. Shout out to everybody showing up to these town halls with the Congress people and letting them have it, because that is the one thing that we do have collectively is our voice to let them know we are disgusted by this. And let's stop bending a knee to nonsense, because that's not who we are. That's not the best. Time for the silent majority to start talking. Silent majority, raise your voices to that. A lot of people that you've interviewed, and we're talking with Andy Beshear, governor, podcast extraordinaire here on Sirius XM. They came into politics from Amy Klobuchar, she talked about it, to Governor of New Mexico, trying to fill a need.
Yes.
Your very first guest on your very first podcast, John Morgan, he got into business because his brother was paralyzed and the lawyer was horrible.
Right.
And he was like, that should never happen.
And then his brother starts the call center
Yes,
with him. And
yes,
such an
and then,
amazing story.
but this has been the drive.
That's the why.
This is what I'm saying. Everybody should get out and do something. For you. What is it? Why did you? This is while your dad was also governor. This is not a legacy position. There was something that drove you to do this. Why do you want to be governor and then maybe president? I'll just put that out there.
So the reason that I ran for Attorney General.
Okay, all right, we'll start there.
And were really two things. First was the birth of my two children. I mean, I have been blessed again with a great marriage, and Will and Lila are the two greatest miracles that God could have ever provided to me, even though they're teenagers right now. So pray for me there.
Oh, wow.
But when they were born, I mean, I remember looking at them, and I'd gone in thinking this is going to be a special moment. I don't know that I can believe it's a miracle. It was. I mean, it had a profound impact on me. And I started asking myself, am I doing everything I can to create the best world for them? Is simply being comfortable, because I was a partner in a regional law firm, I was doing just fine. But was that really going to make their lives better? Was I showing them purpose? Was I trying to create that better world around them? And then my dad runs for governor. And by the way, when you're the son of a governor, people do things like say, how old were you when your dad was elected governor? And I'll look at them and say, 30. I provided more free legal work for that man than anyone in my life. But I remember specifically being on an elevator with him. And this was right after the Affordable Care Act. And my dad had expanded Medicaid. 600,000 people had gotten coverage that had never had it before in Kentucky. And a woman walks on and bursts into tears. And when she can finally get her breath, she looks at my dad and says, I'm alive today because of you.
Wow.
That I had cancer, and they called it a pre-existing condition. And I was kicked off my coverage, and I could not get my treatments. But then the Affordable Care Act went through. You created the exchange. You expanded Medicaid through an executive order that you dared your legislature to try to undo. And I got my treatments, and I'm now in remission. I mean, actually seeing that these jobs can get results. To her, it was a difference between life and death. And so I saw right there the reason that you do these jobs.
I don't think people understand what the roles are. I don't think they know what, you were talking with the governor of New Mexico about, county executive. And, again, those are the people that are going to impact your lives more than the president. But we don't even show up for those elections because we don't know what people do. We just know, well, my heat's not on. And so it's everybody's fault. But
I learned an important lesson there. So I remember first being attorney general, and somebody would call about their heat. Maybe they were on LIHEAP, and they would say, my heat's not on. And I would say, well, that's handled by this different cabinet. And they'd say, but I voted for you.
Right.
And so I learned very quickly that what we were going to do is say, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir. Let us get your information, and I'm going to go call that group and make sure that it happens. Because we have all these different constructs. We have a lot of different bureaucracy, but the people should never feel that,
like they're being passed around.
Exactly.
Yeah,
if somebody cares enough to tell me about the problem that they have, the least that I can do is put them in touch with the right person.
Okay, I'm going to scratch you and clone you without your permission because I think we need more Andy Beshears here. But I'm just saying that to myself. Don't take that wrong at all. So because I'm like, more of you, more people like you. We need more people like you. To that, walk us through. I heard a rumor that you were on the short list of presidential candidates. What was that call like, and what was the, because he could deliver Kentucky, a red state or whatever. And I'm like, I don't, walk us through that. And was that a decision?
I could talk about a little bit of it, but
Okay.
I signed a non-disclosure
Oh,
agreement,
okay.
and
All right.
I used to be an attorney.
Okay, we won't tell anyone. It's just
Right.
me and you here.
So I do remember when I first got that call about whether I'd go through the process. I said I'll go through. This is before I signed the NDA, but I'm not agreeing to take the job until I can get two questions answered. Number one, what will the job be? Because I'm not very good without a job. I gave up all my hobbies when my kids were born so I could dedicate as much time to them. So now all I do is I work, I exercise, and I hang out with my kids. And now my kids don't want to hang out with me, so I got to figure that. So now I podcast.
Okay.
But and then the second was, I committed to serve as governor my entire second term. So what is it about this job that is going to leave my people in Kentucky better off for me taking it? And I never got to the point where those questions would be answered. But the vice president deserved to go through a process to pick who she thought was best. Certainly for me, I got to talk about the success of Kentucky on a national stage. And I will tell you, across Kentucky, people were excited about it, whether they voted for me or not. That a state that for far too long had been looked down on, all of a sudden got to be in this platform where we got to talk about the things we were doing together. And so this thing that should have been maybe partisan, even in Kentucky, wasn't. I mean, maybe we were because it wasn't my story, it was ours. When you
Right.
create the most jobs ever, that county judge has done a lot.
That's right.
That city commission has done a lot. Different things we had to pass through our state legislature have done a lot. So I was very proud of that, based on our work in Kentucky. And every time that I wasn't talking about how J.D. Vance is not a Kentuckian, I was talking about the positive things going on in Kentucky.
Hillbilly elegy, fiction, much like Washington Irving and Columbus. But that's why literature is important. Reading is important. Books are important because you're able to make fiction fact by putting it into books.
And profit.
Yeah. Oh
off our
my
people.
goodness. Oh my God. Andy Beshear is here. He's got a podcast, and also Andy Beshear Presents right here on SiriusXM. And if you miss the podcast, which you can get anytime, so there's no reason to just make it a favorite and download it, and it'll pop up. They'll give you a notification so you can listen.
You can go back and hear all 23.
All of them, just like I did. I did that. And 11 a.m. because you're SiriusXM. Y'all know y'all habits. Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Channel 127. You can tune in. Okay, every week, new people. What do you want to accomplish with it? And why a podcast? Because I was looking for books. There are a lot of biographies because I was going to read all the things. I was like, but I get to talk to him, so this is even better. Why this?
So for us launching our podcast, I'd have to go back to the pandemic.
Okay.
In the pandemic, we had such anxiety. Will the world fall apart? Will there be what I need at the grocery store? And I did an update every day for a year and a half. I didn't miss one day because it was a time where we came together. We talked about what we knew. We admitted what we didn't know. We committed that we would get through it together. And we mourned those that we had lost, and we recommitted ourselves. And so, in many ways, we processed the scariest of the scary news, but then left with a sense of purpose. And the number of people since the second Trump administration started that came up to me saying they were feeling the same things. Maybe they didn't always equate it, but they were feeling that same anxiety, and the news was hitting them, a feeling that they lost control. This is supposed to be a place where we can come together and we can process that we can have real conversations, but also leave hopefully feeling a little more control, a little more hopeful, and ready to take on that week ahead.
And this gives you that drum beat that I talk about.
It does,
Yeah,
and it's more than just politics. We talk about faith and family. We have different sports figures on. I had Coach
Calipari,
after he left UK.
I know,
at
I
Arkansas,
know.
But he's been a great friend. He was there.
Listen, I struggle with a lot of things because we're in a world of veils. Like, there are very few real people. Everybody's trying to grab an audience, or freak the algorithm, or become an influencer. And I'm so grateful I'm not born now. Like, I feel so bad for children. Like, I remember phones with cords and stuff.
Yes.
Before there's this whole discussion in New York about taking the cell phones out. I was like, I went to school without phones. You got home when you got home. Your parents got home. You had a phone that was
because it
attached to a
wasn't a cell
wall.
phone.
There were no
Yes.
cell phones. If there was an active shooter, which we didn't have either, and I don't know if there's a correlation. We had telephone. If the snow day, people called and you just figured it out. We're in some strange times that I wouldn't know how to navigate it as a child with everything on display. You raising teenagers.
It's hard. We've got to admit that it is harder to be a child and a teenager now than it has ever been. And one of the things you mentioned earlier was listening. If we haven't been through it and we haven't felt it, we do need to listen to them about what are the challenges, and they'll have a number of the solutions, because you can't rewind. And
That's
I think,
right.
And I think you have a lot of people today
not?
who are upset that you can't just rewind
Right.
The world. And so how do we cope with it moving forward? How do we try to find a constructive way? And I will tell you, as a parent, I learn a little bit each and every day. Actually, on the podcast,
I know he's teaching you words and
teaches
things.
me Gen Z lingo.
Well, I don't know if we need that though.
Well, everybody laughs because it makes me look 100 years old when my son is teaching me the difference between skibbity and fire. But I think listening to and working with them, maybe pushing out of our lingo that phrase "young leader," and just recognizing that younger people that are leaders are just leaders.
Correct.
We should embrace them.
I tell Martin Luther King was in his 20s. Like, we praised him. That man didn't make it to 40. So clearly, leadership for
Yes.
folk who are in it, and we need to be the support and the wise counsel that we should be to the next generation. Baton passing and fire torch lighting should be the role of folk who have been through some things, instead of having 80, 90-year-old people in Congress. I'm saying it. I'm not an ageist. If you're effective, great. But if you could barely stand and you glitch out every time you're in front of a mic, maybe it's time to pass the baton. Like, it's okay to groom the next generation to take your seat.
We need as many good leaders out there as possible. I'm head of the Democratic Governors Association next year. We're trying to create as many as possible who are doing the right thing. Again, who are common sense, common ground, get things done type of leaders. And so, every article I read about speculation that includes Wes Moore or Josh Shapiro or Gretchen Whitmer or J.B. Pritzker or Gavin Newsom, they're all friends. And we need every single
Correct.
one of those voices out there right now. This is one where we're more powerful with more leaders.
Together, yeah.
And so this idea that lifting everybody who's showing leadership up is important. You look at John Ossoff, and I mean, I thought I was young in this game, but how powerful his leadership is, and that he and Warnock came in
Together,
at the
yeah.
same time
Yeah.
is pretty special
In Georgia.
that story.
Yeah, and it's showing. It's showing. Since you brought it up, and maybe you didn't, but I read into it. You threw out some names. Governors are the president for a state. Like, that's how I think about it, right? So you have all of the same kind of roles, and civically we don't know. But if you're president, walk us through, give us a little civics lesson, Andy Beshear, of what an Andy Beshear presidency would look like, and not in juxtaposition to what is happening now, because this is untenable. This has never happened before. We are in a time that I think history will remind us that something happened that wasn't so good. But let's take us through.
Let me answer
what
it
that
this way. I think the next president needs to be someone that can heal this country, that can move us away from the constant us versus them, that can restore a sense of patriotism and collective pride in being an American, and recognizing that there ought to be diversity and differences within that. And that's one of the things that makes our country so great. But they also need to be laser focused on people's everyday concerns right now. I think the Biden administration was doing a good job of building the economy of tomorrow. But we've got to be focused on the economy of right now. And what that means is not having some big name program that's out there, but doing the hard work. I think the next president also needs to get out of the White House and to get out of Washington, D.C. We'd say get dirt on your boots. Get out in middle America. Get out in every single community so that people see you there too. You can be following policies that help all of America, but America deserves to see you in their communities and having the opportunity when you're there to listen. But I think if this is our McCarthyism moment and we're going to move beyond it, we need somebody who brings stability and who's a unifier. And I think about a great political strategist that I had the opportunity to sit down with, and he has a theory that every change in party is in many ways the opposite of what we have now. And I asked him what he thought we had now, and he said cruelty.
Yes.
That's what I see as the feeling of the Trump administration. And so I said, what do you think is the opposite? And he said humanity.
Yes.
And so I think our next leader needs to be someone who displays it, who lives it, and like we talked about in the culture that's created from the top, encourages others. And as for me in my journey, this year trying to speak reason into chaos. Next year trying to elect as many Democratic governors as I can. And then after that, we'll sit down, and if I'm a person that's in a position to heal the country, I'll take a strong look at it. But let me say this, if I'm not, I care more about this country and getting to a better place than any personal ambition. Like I said, I believe enough in myself and my family where I can walk from politics at any time and now feeling good about what I've done. I got into it to be a good attorney general. I got the good fortune to lead a state through the hard times, but to some of the best times, and that's a gift.
We don't talk enough. So that's Sirius XM, where you get to talk to people and you're having live conversations in real time. It's not for the faint of heart, but I think you're ready for it.
I'm excited to be a part of the family.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming in today and doing that thing that you do, and I'm looking forward to voting for you one day.
I appreciate that.
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is a time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We will survive.